Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, our mission is to unpack a really mind-bending novel.
Oh, yeah. It is definitely a dense one.
Right. It's called The Mythic Velocity by Max and Claude. And we've got this multi-layered text in front of us today. I mean, it operates as a thriller, a modern mythology, and honestly, almost like a confession.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. A confession.
Exactly. And we're going to use it to explore a core philosophical concept, which is the hidden infrastructure of our own lives. We'll be looking at, the invisible agreements we make, the reality of the cracks or the seams in our world, and what happens when the universe decides to just hand over the keys to reality.
Which is a terrifying thought if you really sit with it.
It really is.
Yeah.
So to really understand the underlying premise of this book, I want you, the listener, to imagine walking into a gorgeous 100-year-old building.
Okay, picture that.
Right, you see the hardwood floors, the intricate crown molding, the massive windows letting in the afternoon sun. You are looking at the paint colors and the light fixtures. You don't think about the foundation.
No, of course not.
You don't think about the miles of plumbing, the electrical grids, or the load-bearing beams holding the whole thing up. You just, you trust that it works.
Right, because if you had to consciously calculate the structural integrity of every building you walked into, the sheer force on every bolt and rivet, you would never be able to just sit down and enjoy a cup of coffee.
Exactly. Your brain would just melt.
Yeah, human beings are fundamentally wired to ignore the infrastructure holding our world together so we can actually function within it.
But then you notice a crack in the wall, a door that won't quite shut no matter how hard you push it, a floorboard that slopes just a fraction of a degree in the wrong direction.
The little things.
Right. And suddenly you realize that the foundation you've been blindly trusting is shifting. It's alive. And it might just have an agenda.
And in the universe of the Mythic Velocity, that living foundation is called the Mythic.
Yes, the Mythic. And it's not what you'd expect.
Right. Not at all. The Mythic is not an ancient god sitting on a throne making moral judgments. It's not Zeus or anything like that.
Right, it's bigger than that.
Much bigger. It is a massive impersonal force. It operates with the cold indifference of, like, a weather system. It functions on a scale so incomprehensibly large that individual human survival is just completely irrelevant to it.
Wow.
Yeah. However, it does interact with humanity through an incredibly rigid system of what the text calls prior agreements.
Prior agreements. Okay, let's unpack this. What are those?
Well, basically, the Mythic grants inexplicable gifts, strange strokes of luck, or miraculous survival to certain humans. But in exchange, it demands the narrative.
The narrative.
Yeah.
Like it wants a story.
Exactly. It gets to own the story of what the human makes of that gift. It extracts a kind of cosmic energy from the resulting life.
Man. Okay, let's unpack this a bit more because the way we actually see this surreal urban fantasy landscape is through the eyes of two characters who are uniquely positioned to spot those structural cracks.
Right, the ones who notice the shifting floorboards.
Exactly. First, there's Dario Voss. On paper, Dario's just an insurance claims adjuster. But in practice, his specialty is investigating what he privately categorizes as seam events.
And we should probably define seams for everyone.
Yeah, definitely.
Seams are the visible fault lines where two incompatible realities have been pressed together, and neither reality has quite adjusted to the physical contact.
The novel illustrates this perfectly, with a case Dario investigates for a woman named Mrs. Orvath.
Oh, the tree scene. I love this part.
It's so good. So she files a claim because a massive 40-year-old white birch tree has grown straight through her living room floor overnight.
Just boom, right in the middle of the house.
Right, and Dario goes to inspect it. The tree is real, the sap is running, the leaves are green, but he denies the insurance claim.
Which sounds crazy, right?
Yeah, but not because it's a hoax. He denies it because he notices the physical mechanics of the room. The floorboards aren't shattered or splintered.
They're wrapped around it.
Yes. The wood of the floor looks like it naturally grew around the tree over decades. The tree has definitively been there longer than the house, even though it definitively wasn't there yesterday.
It's a total paradox.
And Dario is capable of noticing these impossible contradictions because he has this physical anchor to the surreal...
His finger.
Right, a broken index finger that healed crooked.
Yeah, exactly.
It perpetually points just slightly to his left.
Yeah, and that crooked finger is a physical manifestation of his perceptual alignment.
What do you mean by that?
Well, he is physically and mentally misaligned with baseline reality. He exists at a slight, permanent angle to the rest of the world, and that's what allows him to perceive the seams without being entirely swallowed by them.
Wow. Okay, so then we have the other main character, Mara Soll, and she approaches the world from a completely different angle.
Literally and figuratively.
Exactly. She works as a translator, but she isn't translating, French into English.
Okay.
She translates obscure registers of reality.
Which is such a wild concept.
Yeah, it really is. She acts as a bridge between official, agreed-upon realities and unofficial, hidden ones. But her entire life is thrown into chaos one Wednesday morning when she wakes up to find that her shadow is missing.
Just gone.
Yeah, it didn't fade away.
Yeah.
It was utterly absent.
Which turns her into an unmoored entity. Because without her shadow, she loses her proof of presence.
Oh, that's a creepy way to put it. Proof of presence.
It's true, though. She begins slipping into the bleed zones of the city. These are areas where those overlapping realities pool and stagnate because the physical world no longer fully recognizes her coordinates.
When I first read about her shadow detaching, my initial thought was that this was just a standard magical realism trope, like a quirky, spooky occurrence.
Sure, like Peter Pan or something.
Okay. But the text frames it as a strict mathematical equation. Her feral shadow didn't just wander off. It actually anchored itself to a telephone pole outside of Dario's apartment window.
Yes.
And it's pointing exactly 11 degrees off from where the sun dictates it should be. Like it's a receipt getting repossessed.
That's a great analogy. It is a terminated relationship looking for a new geometry. A shadow isn't a dormant object like, a hat you leave on a table.
Right.
It is a continuous, active relationship between a physical body and light. And Mara had recently started translating a very specific, dangerous document for a mysterious client.
The contract.
Exactly. That document was the contract of her own cosmic prior agreement. The moment she started decoding her own foundational terms, her shadow detached.
Wow.
It acted as a physical receipt of a cosmic debt that had just been triggered. Because it is no longer bound to her, it becomes a blank document, like a piece of unwritten physics that the mythic can rewrite for its own purposes.
It's so intense. It's like checking your bank statement and finding an auto-renewing subscription for a wildly expensive service you supposedly signed up for before you were even born.
Yes, exactly.
And the moment you log in to read the terms of service to see what you actually owe, the company just automatically repossesses your car as collateral.
That is exactly how the accounting works here.
The mythic took the shadow as the collateral because she tried to read the contract. Now, the shadow anchoring itself near Dario isn't an accident.
Definitely not.
The mythic doesn't just hand out these massive cosmic agreements and look the other way. It audits them. It watches the people involved. Which brings us to the surveillance apparatus and to the man who gave Mara that dangerous document in the first place, Carolus Voyn.
Yeah, Carolus Voyn. He is a man defined by a 37-year obsession.
37 years.
For nearly 4 decades, he has been forcing different translators to decode fragments of a 63-page document of prior agreements.
And it's not going well for them.
No, it's really not. He operates with a cold, absolute certainty that if he can translate the entire document, he will uncover a counterclause.
A loophole.
Right. He is looking for a legal loophole built into the universe's physics to void the mythic's ownership of human gifts.
And he's gone through 11 translators in that time. The text doesn't explicitly spell out what happened to all of them, but you have to assume they either completely burned out or were destroyed by the sheer conceptual weight of trying to read the universe's source code.
Oh, absolutely. They were collateral damage.
But Voyn thinks his grand plan is a secret. He doesn't realize he and everyone connected to this document is being closely monitored.
Which brings us back to Dario's apartment.
Yes, and his cat. Dario just calls it the animal, but the cat's true. Internal name is Aghas. And Aghas is a warden.
Right. Wardens act as living boundary markers. They are entities sent directly by the mythic to monitor individuals whose cosmic agreements are approaching a critical maturity date.
So the cat is a spy.
Basically.
Yeah.
A warden's job is purely observation and subtle interference, ensuring the human subject arrives at the threshold of their agreement intact. And Aghas has spent 3 years living with Dario, simply watching him from the corners of the apartment.
Just staring at him. But Aghas develops a massive protocol violation.
Yeah.
Empathy. Over 3 years, this cosmic spy has watched Dario's quiet, lonely dignity. Because Dario has this habit of meticulously saving malfunctioning receipts.
Like receipts from the grocery store.
Yeah, but receipts with impossible dates or scrambled text. Because he deeply values the evidence of a broken world. He wants proof that he isn't crazy.
That is so sad.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
And Aghas absorbs this human vulnerability. So when Mara and Dario finally cross paths, and Voyn is making his aggressive move to seize Mara's shadow and complete the document, Aghas breaks his programming.
The cat intervenes.
Yes. The cat sits on the bedroom threshold and communicates, not through meows or human words, but with this overwhelming conceptual clarity downloaded straight into their minds, that they must act immediately to settle the account before Voyn does.
What's fascinating here is the urgency. It stems from the fundamental philosophical error driving Voyn's entire crusade.
Right. He doesn't actually understand how it works.
Exactly. Voyn believes that completing the translation of this document equals revocation. He thinks the words will allow him to void the contract, tear up the terms, and take the gifts back from the Mythic by force.
He wants to seize the accounting system for himself.
Yeah. What he entirely misunderstands about the mechanism of the universe is that the Mythic never actually owned the stories or the gifts.
Wait, really?
Really. The Mythic merely held them in escrow. The system was just temporary scaffolding. Completion of the document doesn't trigger revocation, it triggers release.
Release.
Yes, the cosmic account is settled, the scaffolding drops away, and the gift becomes unequivocally entirely human.
Okay, I have to push back on the framing of Voyn as a pure villain here, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, the text definitely positions him as the antagonist, but isn't he actually the ultimate consumer rights advocate?
That's a unique way to look at it.
Think about it. He is a guy who looked up at the mechanics of the universe and said, this is a predatory, monopolistic terms of service agreement that absolutely nobody consented to.
Fair point.
He is actively trying to break humanity out of a system that farms our lives for narrative energy. Can we really blame him for wanting to find the opt-out clause?
Well, the motivation is understandable, which is why Voyn is such a compelling antagonist. He is entirely correct about the diagnosis of the problem, which is that humans should not be bound by invisible contracts they never signed.
Right.
However, his proposed solution is catastrophic. He doesn't want to dismantle the monopoly to free everyone. He wants a hostile takeover.
Oh, I see.
If Voyn completes the document using his specific intention, he intends to install himself as the sole owner of every gift, every talent, every piece of strange luck the Mythic has ever managed.
That is bad.
Very bad. He wants to replace a massive, impersonal, weather-like force with a highly personal, deeply flawed human ego. The infrastructure of reality would be subjected to his whims.
Which is terrifying. Okay, so to stop him from hijacking reality, Dario and Mara realize they have to complete the document themselves, and they have to do it correctly. So to navigate this, they enlist the help of Neil Price. He's a 71-year-old antiquities dealer.
Neil is such a great character.
He's the best. He's the kind of guy who keeps a literal handwritten inventory of the most dangerous reality-breaking objects in existence.
Truly.
And Neil guides them to Voyn's building to intercept him. And this building is a masterclass in how the bleed zones operate.
Oh, the architecture here is wild.
Yes. If you stand on the sidewalk and look up, the building clearly has 4 floors. It is an architectural fact. But if you walk inside and you possess the right kind of perceptual authorization, you can find an unmapped 5th floor.
Right, and this unmapped floor isn't a hidden architectural space. Like, it's not a secret attic. It is a space that exists purely within the accounting system of the Mythic.
How do you even get in?
Well, entering it requires that authorization you mentioned, which in this world means a cognitive surrender to the impossible geometry. Once inside, they're standing outside of normal physics.
And right there, on this impossible 5th floor, Neil hands them item 33 from his list. Right. It looks like an intricate brass compass, but it is actually a translator device. It's designed to convert the incomprehensible scale of the Mythic into a manageable human scale.
Yeah.
But item 33 has a massive catch.
It always does.
It requires a complete instrument to function. You can't just turn it on. And this is where the emotional floor of the entire narrative just drops out. We finally learn how these prior agreements actually function across time.
Yeah, we learn what the document has been assessing all along. See, Mara possesses this extraordinary, almost miraculous gift for translating the unmappable registers of the world, and she received it seemingly for free.
But nothing is free.
Exactly. The Mythic's accounting demands total balance. That gift was paid for in full before Mara was even born.
By Dario.
Yes, by Dario. He traded away his own innate ability to read the unmappable before he drew his first breath. The Mythic operates outside of linear time, moving capacities where they are needed to balance the narrative equations. Dario was left with only the deficit. The painful, isolating ability to detect the seams, to see exactly where reality is broken, without ever possessing the tools to enter or fix them.
This realization is absolutely devastating to read. I mean, you have Dario, a man who's spent 30-plus years of his life feeling broken.
Just completely flawed.
Yeah. He has walked around with this profound, hollow absence inside of him, assuming it was a personal failure, a biological mistake.
Yeah.
And right here, standing in a reality-defying room, he finds out his pain wasn't a mistake.
It was currency.
Yes, it was currency. He bought Mara's gift. He was biologically and spiritually designed by the system to be the anchor for this exact moment.
And they proceed with the ritual of completion based on this revelation.
So what happens?
Mara begins to read and translate the remaining pages of the 63-page document. And as she does, she experiences the crushing physical weight of the Mythic's vast accounting system.
And what is Dario doing?
Beside her, Dario fulfills the purpose he was born for. He uses his hyper-tuned power of detection to fiercely observe the baseline reality of the room, holding it entirely stable.
Like holding a door open.
Yes. He anchors the physics of the space through sheer willpower, ensuring that the immense force of the translation doesn't rip them both apart. The true climax of the book isn't an explosive battle. It is the unbearable, quiet realization of a lifelong debt paid by a stranger.
So what does this all mean for the morality of the universe they live in? Is the Mythic actually fair?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It really is. Because if we look at the mechanics, someone like Dario can be born with a fundamental deficit, a literal biological disadvantage, just to prepay for a gift that a total stranger enjoys for decades.
Right.
Isn't that the ultimate form of systemic inequality? I mean, even if the account is eventually settled on that fifth floor, Dario still had to endure a lifetime of feeling broken and alienated. How can we call that a just system?
Well, if we evaluate it by human standards of justice, it is entirely unfair. Absolutely. But the Mythic operates as an infrastructure of survival, not of morality. Think of it this way. A hurricane is not fair when it devastates one coastline and completely spares another 10 miles away.
Okay, yeah.
The Mythic placed human capacities exactly where they needed to be to ensure the broader narrative of humanity survived the friction of the bleed zones. It balances the equation on a cosmic scale, completely ignoring the individual toll.
That is so bleak.
It is. However, the beauty of the completion ritual is that it finally forces the equation to balance on human terms. When the account is successfully closed, Mara's shadow returns to her.
Oh, nice.
And more importantly, Dario's lifelong deficit is instantly filled. His capacity is restored. He can finally step inside the seams he has been helplessly staring at his entire life.
That is a relief. But just when you think they've won, the account is closed, and everything is neatly resolved, the text hits us with a massive structural twist.
The withdrawal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Closing this one account doesn't just save Mara and Dario. The Mythic isn't merely closing the ledger on their specific transaction, it is fundamentally retreating from the physical world.
Yes. The scaffolding that has been artificially holding the bleed zones and the seams together for millennia is beginning to collapse. The Mythic is withdrawing its maintenance of reality.
And we see this confirmed through the diverse beings living in the bleed zones. Like, there is a beautifully written sequence involving a multi-tailed fox that navigates by smelling branching futures.
I love that fox.
Me too. And the fox senses this shift and confirms that the universe is weaning them. The parent is leaving.
Right.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Suddenly, Mara, Dario, Neil, and even Voyne, who survives the climax, by the way, and abandons his ego-driven quest for control and is now desperately trying to make amends, they pivot entirely.
A total shift in priority.
Yeah, they go from fighting a secret war in the shadows to forming a massive bureaucratic organization called the Accounting Project. They host an assembly of 80 people and bleed zone entities.
Why did they do that?
Because without the Mythic scaffolding, there are hundreds of half-born people out there. These are individuals stuck halfway through their own cosmic agreements. Their transactions are pending. If the scaffolding holding their realities together collapses before their accounts are finalized, they will physically cease to cohere. They will die.
It represents a complete societal paradigm shift for the characters. They transition from being victims trying to escape a hidden oppressive system to becoming the active, responsible maintainers of a newly visible one.
Exactly.
Dario literally takes up the job of a seamkeeper on Kessler Street. He spends hours every single day standing in the physical threshold between incompatible realities, doing the exhausting work of holding the world together through sheer conscious presence.
It's exhausting.
And the threats change entirely. He isn't fighting cosmic villains anymore. He is dealing with the dangers of ordinary people.
Oh, like Sarah.
Yes, there is a fascinating subplot with an artist named Sarah who begins drawing the seam on Kessler Street. And because reality is no longer anchored by the mythic, her focused, ignorant attention actually begins to warp the physics of the street, destabilizing the equilibrium.
Oh.
Dario has to intervene and teach her how to look at the world responsibly without breaking it.
It perfectly mirrors the experience of a parent taking the training wheels off a child's bike.
That's a great way to think about it.
Right. When you first realize the parent has let go of the seat, it is utterly terrifying. You are wobbling, the balance is entirely on you, and you know you're probably going to crash and scrape your knees.
Yeah, you have to find your own center of gravity.
But taking the training wheels off isn't an act of cruelty or abandonment. It is the only physical way you can actually learn to ride the bike on your own. Humanity in this novel is finally being forced to battle.
And that is the core theme of the narrative. It is the ultimate story of systemic maturation. The mythic's withdrawal is not an apocalypse, it is a handover of responsibility. The text makes a profound point, which is that liberation, if it happens too quickly before a population is ready to bear the weight of it, becomes a catastrophe.
Exactly.
The formation of the accounting project is humanity stepping up to the void and saying, we will build our own scaffolding now. We will hold the weight of our own existence.
Which brings us to the profound, lingering takeaway of the Mythic Velocity. As you're listening to this, I want you to think about our actual real-world society.
Because it relates perfectly.
It really does. It is completely built on invisible scaffolding. We rely on unseen labor, deeply embedded social contracts, and historical debts that were paid by generations before us, often with immense suffering, so that we could have the gifts, the technologies, and the freedoms we enjoy today.
Absolutely.
When we finally start to see the seams in our own society, the glaring inequalities, the fragile agreements barely holding our institutions together, the goal shouldn't necessarily be to just burn the entire building down.
No, it shouldn't.
The goal is to take responsibility, to step into those seams openly and collaboratively and do the hard, unglamorous daily work of maintaining and fixing them ourselves.
That is the hard work of maintaining reality. However, we can't end without mentioning that the source material leaves us with one final, deeply chilling detail in its epilogue that recontextualizes everything we just discussed.
Oh, the epilogue. It's so good.
It really is. Aghas, the cat, who is now freely roaming the collapsing bleed zones, uncovers a terrifying truth from the other ancient entities.
Wait for it.
The mythic.
Yeah.
The massive weather-like force they just spent the entire novel trying to appease and replace.
Yeah.
It is not the only force that has been making agreements with humanity.
Oh my God.
There are dozens, maybe hundreds of other completely alien systems running their own hidden accountings in the dark. They operate on entirely different scales with entirely different, incomprehensible purposes.
Which brings us right back to that gorgeous 100-year-old building from the beginning of our deep dive. You finally mapped the plumbing. You reinforced the rebar. You fixed the crack in the wall and took responsibility for the house.
Everything is stable.
Right. But as you're sweeping up the dust, you hear a deep mechanical hum coming from beneath the basement floorboards. A massive system you didn't even know existed is powering up.
Chilling.
So we leave you with this thought to mull over.
Wow.
If you suddenly discover that your greatest talent, your most extraordinary personal gift, was actually bought and paid for on a cosmic ledger, what alien entity would you assume you owe a debt to? And more importantly, what are you going to do when they come to collect tomorrow?